Well, a race like this demonstrates just how important it is to try to make contact with every potential voter in your district. Perhaps we'll know more on Action News at 5:30 and 6 in the morning, but presumably we won't, because this one is going to go for at least a couple of days, as Joe Huffle suggested. We may see a recount, we may see court action. It's hard to say at this moment, but certainly a race that is as close as one can get in the 13th Congressional District in Montgomery County in the state of Pennsylvania. So that race is yet to be decided. Torricelli wins in New Jersey. Biden goes back to the Senate in Delaware. Carper returns as governor of Delaware, and of course Bill Clinton wins a second term as president in his victory tonight over Bob Dole. That is our election coverage. Action News, Vote 96. I'm glad you could be with us tonight. Thank you for giving us a tune in on this very important night. I'm Jim Gardner. We'll see you tomorrow.
Closed captioning provided by Bell Atlantic, the heart of communication.
Program already in progress.
Expressed great interest in knowing how Congress works and in getting legislation done. This man left the one job that he was just superb at. This is a year when voters said they want to see
results. Yeah, but the Democrats were killing him at that job.
I appreciate that.
He wanted to be the leader that got things done, and the Democrats were making certain that they stopped everything.
But he was perceived by voters as being someone that could get things done, and that's the job he walked away from.
And his own party people didn't do him any favors either in trying to get things done. He wanted to work out compromises, and they just wouldn't stand for it.
There's another thing. What I think we're all getting at here, in a way, is that when you try to take on something that fundamentally you're not, voters know it. The centrist, process-oriented Bob Dole trying to sound, remember that great line, or that revealing line where he told Republicans, I'll be another Ronald Reagan if that's what you want me to be. And you contrast that with Ronald Reagan, who seemed to have an age problem when he ran, was widely derided as a guy who'd never make it in the field of president, but who knew what he was about and campaigned in poetry, as I said earlier. Some people think he governed in poetry as well. But the difference of Bob Dole trying to put on the cloak of a visionary conservative Republican who he was not, and Reagan, who was that in his bones, tells you a major difference.
Jeff has a major point here. The old Bob Dole, who didn't show up this year, was for affirmative action, saved it in the Nixon administration, was a fiscal hawk. So the new Bob Dole becomes a supply-sider. He never believed that. And I said during the campaign to people, you know, in private, I would say, don't worry if you don't like the 15% tax cut, if you think that's the wrong thing to do. If Dole is elected president, he will veto it if Congress passes it.
Let me change. I want to change direction, Cokie. I apologize. Clinton. Okay, now we've got. Okay, yes. Then start off, because 4 years of Clinton, is the country going to enjoy it?
Yes.
No. What is your considered opinion tonight?
That's a real sentence. Yes, no.
Have you been billing up to this bar before us?
I don't know how to get to this bar. I'm having trouble. The fact is that I wanted to talk for a little bit about Clinton in this race, and then I'll talk about 4 years. But Clinton, we're talking about Dole. The truth is, he thought, you always move to the right to get the nomination, Hal, and the Democrats moved to the left to get theirs. He thought initially that getting the nomination was all he'd need because Clinton was such a flawed president that anybody could beat him. And the fact is that Clinton did very, very well, not only in terms of coming back to the middle, but of getting his message right, and then the economy performed beautifully, and at least beautifully enough in the voters' minds. Lynn's exit poll showing it all night. And I think that it became a much harder task than he had realized. So now the next 4 years can be very problematic.
Could Bill Clinton have won without Newt Gingrich?
It would have been much harder to win without Newt Gingrich. It made it a lot easier. But what Newt Gingrich mainly did was scare off other Democrats from getting into the primaries against Clinton. That was the single most important thing that happened. If he had had a challenger in the primaries, then he would probably be history tonight.
Now, Hal, Lynn told us several times how people held their noses a little bit. That's too strong when they voted for Bill Clinton, but voted with reservations about Bill Clinton. How, with that in mind, how vengeful do you think the Republican Congress will be?
Well, I think they're going to be pretty tough. The great danger is that either the president or the leaders of the Republican Congress will each think that they've got a mandate, one because they got reelected. And when that happens, they are headed for trouble. But I think there's a long shopping list of things that the Republican Congress wants to do, issues that were raised in this campaign, all types of investigations that are going to occur. There's no way of stopping it. It's like water flowing downhill.
Jeff, then Lynn.
There's one other possibility. I mean, we're talking about, well, maybe it's a bipartisan time for the great compromise. Maybe it's the battle of dueling subpoenas and press releases. But one wonders, I don't like to say it the way I wonder, whether the conservatives in Congress are going to follow the lead of people in Congress like Dan Coates from Indiana, the senator, or John McCain of Arizona, conservatives who have been saying to their colleagues, it's not enough to oppose. We have to set out a much more positive agenda. One of the things that killed the Republicans this year was the Clinton campaign was able to paint them as somehow not caring about education and kids and stuff. And so I'm wondering whether one of the things we're going to see, possibly, are some people among the conservatives in Congress kind of trying to reach out to Clinton, making an end run around.
What about Newt Gingrich? We haven't heard a word from Newt Gingrich tonight. He was going to appear, then he decided not to appear. What kind of a character is Newt Gingrich going to be?
Problem. He said that if he didn't retain the majority in the House,
he didn't want to serve.
He wasn't going to serve. Now he's got the majority, but he has another problem. It's called the ethics investigation. The ethics committee, which is split down the middle, did an extraordinary thing about a month ago. An outside counsel, not an independent counsel under the law, but a counsel they'd hired, issued a report which said in almost so many words that the speaker, in the investigation of his activities, had either withheld information from the committee or had not told the truth about it. And many people think the thing that got Bob Packwood in the Senate was not the fact that he allegedly groped 28 women over the years, but that he doctored his diaries before the Senate Ethics Committee, and they weren't going to have that. So the Speaker may have a problem in this next Congress.
And the more they investigate the Democrats, the more they'll investigate the Speaker. It will be a tit-for-tat sort of situation that will be very unpleasant.
Sounds like
one other thing to point
last
out.
comment tonight, Lynn David.
Let me tell you about Newt Gingrich tonight. 60% of the people said that they had an unfavorable opinion of him in this country. And just very quickly, Peter, I'm out of my box. I still have numbers. Bill Clinton did very well with all groups, and he did better than he did in a lot last year, 4 years ago. Moderates, independents. He did very well with groups all across the board. Peter?
Thank you all very much. David, you get the last word.
Okay, fine. I'm not going to say much. Among things I admire, almost near the top, is creativeness. And everyone in this group has it. It shows in your work. It shows in your thinking. And it shows in your speech. What you do, what you write, what you say. And it's one reason this group is so terrific. Bill Clinton has none of it. He has not a creative bone in his body. Therefore, he's a bore and will always be a bore.
Strong letter to follow, David.
David, thank you very much for everything. Thank you very much for everything, and thank you all very much. You've made it, again, a great pleasure for me. We have an enormous technical and editorial staff who supports us. You can see some of them in the room, and they're in every corner of the building. In fact, they're in every corner of the country tonight, our technical staff particularly. I want to offer special thanks to Bob Roy, but most of all to Nancy Gabriner, who's down here in the pit below us, David, and without whom some days I think we wouldn't know what to think. Thank you for joining us, as some of you have, perhaps for a lengthy period of time, even if you've joined us for part of the time. This has been Election 96. Bill Clinton has been re-elected, and the country goes on. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
From New York, this has been ABC News live coverage of the 96 vote.